I've described it as being like a bell that rings, and it continues to ring, and it continues to reverberate throughout all of our politics.
On the evening of August 11, 2017, a large group of white nationalists gathered here on the lawn, chanting white supremacist and Nazi slogans. The Unite the Right rally continued on into the next day, resulting in one of the most violent gatherings in the United States. There is no doubt that the events that took place here 5 years ago today left a lasting impact on the country, the University of Virginia, and Charlottesville. The Unite the Right rally started around 10 p.m. on August 11, when white nationalists marched through UVA grounds while carrying torches and chanting racist slogans such as White Lives Matter and Jews will not replace us. The rally continued the next morning on August 12, with violence escalating between the white nationalist groups and counter-protesters. At approximately 1:40 p.m., a Dodge Challenger driven by James Alex Fields Jr., a white nationalist, plowed his car into a crowd of pedestrians at Water and 4th Streets. 19 were injured, and a Charlottesville resident named Heather Heyer was killed. Heather's mother, Susan Breaux, set up a nonprofit scholarship foundation in her daughter's name. Unfortunately, the foundation is coming to a close as we near the 5th anniversary of her death. We talked to Susan about the legacy Heather has left behind.
I feel like Heather's story accomplished what it was intended to do, which was to help primarily white people pay attention and understand that the white supremacy is a real issue for people. Heather's was not a completely rare case, but an unusual case of white on white and a hate crime, where religion was not a factor or other factors, but because she was in support of making sure that everyone had equity and justice. Mr. Fields explained in court that was why he chose to drive into the crowd. Heather was not singled out as an intentional murder. She was the sole victim of an attempted mass murder. She was the sole murder victim. There were at least 39 people injured and maybe more. 19 definitely was serious, and many of them still ongoing issues. With Heather's murder, people paid more attention. I see people now reacting, white people now reacting when a Black person is murdered or injured. Unfortunately, attention spans are short. We're trying to work on getting some of that sustained.
The Unite the Right rally was a blatant display of racism before the country's eyes, and although activists and people of color have been fervently fighting racism and equity for countless years before this rally, it seems a lot more people stood up to fight after this event. We asked Susan about her thoughts on the current conditions of Virginia and America. So in the countless interviews you have done since 2017, you have talked about the racism and hatred present in Virginia and in this country. What are your thoughts on the conditions of Charlottesville and America today? Are things in a better place, you think?
I think more white Americans are paying attention. I don't know that we're in a better place because we're now pretty polarized, but honestly, I'm kind of a fan of people not pretending, but coming out and being who they are. When people hide their racism, when people hide who they are, then it's harder to know what's going on around you. So in some ways, the polarization, people outing themselves, has been maybe a good thing if we avail ourselves of the opportunity to make the world a better place because of it.
Every year, residents of Charlottesville are reminded of the tragic and violent events that happened on August 11 and 12. Mayor Lloyd Snook gave us a rundown on the various exhibitions and events planned for the 5th anniversary of the Unite the Right rally?
Well, there are a couple in particular that are photographic exhibits that I think are really interesting. One has been going on for a few weeks now down in the Richmond Holocaust Museum. There is an exhibition at the small library at the University of Virginia in the trees on the downtown mall, and these about 10-foot tall photographs by Eze Amos, who's a well-renowned photographer in the New York Times. And the interesting thing about those is they have QR codes on them, and if you focus your cell phone on the QR code, it'll take you to a website where that person's interview can be heard describing what August 11th, August 12th, 2017 meant to them, what they experienced, what their reaction to it was. In addition, there will be on Friday the 12th, there will be what they call a marching vigil or a walking vigil for a couple of hours, followed by an interdenominational church service that night. There's going to be the Soul of Charlottesville at the Ix Art Park on the 12th, 13th, and 14th. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
When the Unite the Right rally happened, it showed people everywhere in this country that racism is very much present in our society. How has Charlottesville worked towards making the city confront its own history with racism and its current conditions today?
In terms of confronting the past, of course, the issue first came up because of the move to remove the statues of Stonewall Jackson and of Robert E. Lee. And so the city was already beginning to confront that past. But one of the things that's happened, I think, is that sort of what I'll term mainstream Charlottesville has come to understand to a much greater degree than we had before just what it means and has meant to the black population of Charlottesville. To have the sense, for example, that they were not welcome in these parks, and that those statues were seen as symbols of the fact that they were not welcome. So in terms of the statues, there's been a real symbolic change in how we respond. It has also been true that the events of 2017, I've described it as being like a bell that rings, and it continues to ring, and it continues to reverberate throughout all of our politics.
It seems like the one good thing that came out of this rally was the awareness and acknowledgement by people in this country that racism is a dire issue. However, it is a problem we are still facing, whether it is at the national or local level, as noted by both Mayor Lloyd Snook and Susan Breaux.
So the discussions of fair housing and affordable housing in Charlottesville you can still hear the bell ringing in that discussion. And it's something we're continuing to work on, but I think we're making progress.
Looks to me like we're still fighting a lot of the same issues, though. Fair housing, fair application of the law, fair employment. I'm still seeing all the same issues, not just in Charlottesville, but everywhere across the country.